The 1970s were a transformative decade in the automotive world. With rising fuel prices, changing consumer preferences, and shifting design trends, many vehicles of the era were quickly overshadowed by the next big thing. However, some of these cars, despite their significance, have faded into obscurity. Let's take a deep dive into some of the most overlooked yet fascinating cars of the 70s that deserve more recognition today. 1. AMC Hornet, 1970 to 1977. American Motors Corporation was always known for thinking outside the box. While most car enthusiasts can easily recall the Pacer, Gremlin, Javelin, and even the Matador, the Hornet is often left out of the conversation. This compact sedan arrived at the perfect time when America started shifting away from massive gas guzzlers in favor of smaller, more practical cars. What made the Hornet stand out was its ability to constantly reinvent itself. Unlike its competitors, who quickly faded into obscurity, Hornet evolved into multiple iterations. By 1978, it transformed into the AMC Concord, and later, with the addition of Jeep's four-wheel drive technology, it became the AMC Eagle, arguably the first true crossover SUV. The Eagle was at least 2 decades ahead of its time, proving that AMC was pioneering ideas long before the industry caught up. Unfortunately, despite its ingenuity, the Hornet never received the widespread recognition it deserved. 2. Ford Maverick, 1970 to 1977. The Ford Maverick was one of the most practical and stylish budget-friendly cars of the early 70s, yet it remains largely forgotten today. Designed to be an affordable alternative to larger sedans, the Maverick was Ford's answer to the economic concerns of the time. Despite its humble status, the Maverick had a surprisingly groovy fastback design, which made it stand out in a sea of boxy economy cars. However, while it was a reliable and efficient vehicle, it never truly captured the attention of enthusiasts in the way that muscle cars of the time did. Over the years, the Maverick faded from memory, despite its important role in Ford's lineup. Today, with the resurgence of small, stylish sedans, it's surprising that the Maverick nameplate remained dormant for so long, until Ford recently revived it as a compact pickup truck. 3. Ford Torino, 1972 to 1977. The Ford Torino was a staple of American roads throughout the 1970s. It served multiple roles, from a powerful muscle car to a reliable family sedan. Even its slightly more upscale counterpart, the Grand Torino, became a household name thanks to its appearance in the hit TV series Starsky and Hutch. The Torino was Ford's answer to the intermediate segment, competing against GM's mid-sized offerings. Its Italian-inspired name hinted at a level of sophistication that set it apart from other domestic sedans. It combined the best elements of 1960s curvy designs with the squared-off styling of the 70s, creating a car that was both elegant and bold. Despite its popularity at the time, the Torino was unceremoniously phased out in favor of the LTDI in 1977. Muscle car versions of the Torino have found a niche among collectors, but the standard versions remain largely forgotten, despite their once prominent presence on American roads. 4. Volkswagen 411 and 412, 1971 to 1974. Volkswagen had achieved massive success with the Beetle, the Bus, and the Fastback, but when it came time to introduce a luxury model to the American market, things didn't go quite as planned. Enter the Volkswagen 411 and 412, a pair of air-cooled sedans that were intended to provide a premium experience. Volkswagen attempted to differentiate the 411 with features like metallic paint, wall-to-wall carpeting, and an automatic transmission. However, these upgrades were not enough to convince American buyers that this was a luxury car. The 80-horsepower engine struggled to deliver the acceleration expected in the US market, making it underwhelming compared to domestic luxury vehicles. By 1974, Volkswagen had abandoned the Type 4 lineup in America. It wouldn't be until 30 years later, with the ill-fated Volkswagen Phaeton, that VW would make another attempt at the luxury segment, an effort that similarly ended in disappointment. 5. Pontiac Astre, 1973 to 1977. While most people remember the Chevrolet Vega as one of the worst cars of the 1970s, few recall that Pontiac had its own version, the Astre. This was General Motors' first significant attempt at badge engineering, and the results were not particularly impressive. The Astre was essentially a rebadged Vega, carrying over many of its flaws. While GM had begun addressing some of the Vega's issues by 1973, the Astre was still seen as an overpriced and underwhelming alternative. Oldsmobile Omega, 1973 to 1979. Badge engineering wasn't always a disaster in the 70s. The Oldsmobile Omega, a rebadged version of the Chevrolet Nova, was actually a solid and well-regarded car at the time. Unlike later badge-engineered disasters, the Omega had enough differences to maintain its own identity. The Omega was dependable and practical, and even Buick had its own version, the Apollo. However, the badge engineering trend soon took a turn for the worse when Oldsmobile moved the Omega to the unreliable X-body platform, leading to its decline. 7. Ford Granada, 1975 to 1980. The Ford Granada was an attempt to bring European-inspired luxury to the American masses. Ford's marketing campaigns even compared it to the Mercedes-Benz 280, which seems laughable in hindsight. However, the strategy worked. Between 1975 and 1980, Ford sold nearly 1.8 million units of the Granada. Despite its success, the Granada never developed a strong enthusiast following. It was a well-built car, but it lacked the excitement needed to become a classic. Today, it's a forgotten piece of Ford's history, despite its significant sales numbers. 8. Datsun 200 SX, 1977 to 1979. Japanese automakers made a huge impact on the US market in the 1980s, but their journey was not without missteps. One such stumble was the Datsun 200 SX, a car that was supposed to be a sporty coupe, but instead turned out to be slow, clumsy, and inefficient. The 200 SX was neither a true sports car nor a proper economy car, making it an awkward middle ground that failed to resonate with buyers. Additionally, its design was widely regarded as one of the ugliest of the decade. Over time, rust claimed most of the units that were sold, as a mere footnote in Nissan's history. 9. Mercury Bobcat, 1975 to 1980. In the mid-1970s, badge engineering was just beginning to take hold, and one of the earliest examples, a slightly more upscale version of the Ford Pinto. Ford made a few attempts to differentiate the Bobcat, such as tweaking the grille and taillights, but these efforts did little to disguise its Pinto roots. Despite Ford selling over 1 million Pintos, the Mercury Bobcat never really caught on, with fewer than 225,000 units sold. Today, it's largely forgotten, overshadowed by its infamous sibling and its reputation for rear-end explosion risks. 10. 1978 Buick Century Aeroback, America's failed attempt at a hatchback. By the late 1970s, American car companies were desperately trying to copy European trends, and GM decided that their mid-size cars needed a hatchback design. The result was the Buick Century Aeroback, a bizarre attempt at creating a Euro-style fastback sedan. Unfortunately, American buyers weren't interested, and the Aeroback design proved to be a sales disaster. Between 1978 and 1979, Buick sold fewer than 48,000 units, forcing them to bring back a traditional sedan in 1980. It was a prime example of how blindly following trends without understanding the market can backfire spectacularly. 11. 1978 Dodge Magnum, the muscle car that arrived too late. Chrysler had high hopes for the 1978 Dodge Magnum, a personal luxury coupe designed to compete with the Ford Thunderbird. It had cool features, like flip-down headlight covers, but it was built on a platform from the early 1960s, making it feel outdated from day one. Worse, with fuel prices skyrocketing, buyers weren't interested in massive, gas-guzzling V8s anymore. The Magnum sold poorly and was soon replaced by Chrysler's downsized models, making it a largely forgotten muscle car misfire. 12. 1974 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna. The forgotten the SCR star. While the Chevrolet name is legendary, one specific version has been largely forgotten: the 1974 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna. This wasn't just another Chevrolet, it was an NASCAR-dominating machine, with its aerodynamic front end giving it an edge on the track. Drivers like Cale Yarborough piloted the Laguna to multiple victories, making it one of the most successful stock cars of the 1970s. However, despite its racing pedigree, the Laguna struggled in the consumer market. The mid-70s were a tough time for muscle cars, and with stricter emissions regulations, rising fuel costs, and a shifting market, the Laguna was discontinued after 1976. While the standard Chevrolet remains an icon, the Laguna's unique history is often overlooked, making it one of the most underrated performance cars of its era. The 1970s saw a fascinating mix of innovation, experimentation, and occasional missteps in the automotive world. While some of these cars achieved brief moments of fame, most have been lost in history, overshadowed by more iconic models. However, they all played a role in shaping the automotive landscape, and for that, they deserve to be remembered. Which of these forgotten classics do you think deserves a revival? Let us know in the comments below.